I have a crush on a super attractive regular customer who frequently visits the restaurant where I work, and according to my manager, he only comes in on the days that I'm there, but I have no idea how to ask him out. So I, 24F, work part-time as a waitress, trying to pay off student loans, and I have a huge crush on guy who tends to come in for breakfast or lunch a couple of times a week on the days I'm working. He's handsome, super sweet, and I'm pretty sure he's single, but I'm not 100% sure. If I had to guess, I'd say he's 25 to 27. I've gotten to know him a little bit since we sometimes talk if I'm not too busy. He said he moved here a few months ago. I'd love to ask him out, but I have no idea how, and plus, I get really nervous around him. Whenever he comes in, my manager always makes sure I get him since she knows I have a big crush on him. His bill is usually between $8 and $9, but he always pays with a $20 and tells me to keep the change. Do you think that might be a sign he likes me? My manager said she's seen him drive a really expensive sports car a couple of times, so the large tip might not mean anything. But she said she catches him looking at me quite a bit and said he never comes in when I'm not working. Considering I'm kind of a shy person, what's the best way to ask him out without being extremely embarrassed or nervous? My hands are sweating just thinking about it. Comments by OP. One morning, I had a really grumpy old man giving me a ton of backlash for no reason, and when I walked away, I saw him talking to the old man. When I came back, the old man was suddenly very nice to me. I don't know what he said to the guy, but he obviously stuck up for me. Anyway, that just kinda gives you an idea of what type of guy he is. I actually have this Friday off, and he comes in every Friday morning at the same exact time to eat breakfast. It would be super easy to just show up for breakfast at the same time and sit in / near the spot he always sits. Haha. I literally have nothing planned on Friday, so this could work. My manager keeps bugging me, asking me when I'm going to make a move. I'll have to fill her in tomorrow and let her know my possible plan. I appreciate your comment. I'll try to be confident, and if things don't work out, I won't let it bring me down. Update 1. I have good news. As I mentioned in my original post, I normally work Friday mornings and he comes in for breakfast at the same time every Friday. Well, I had the day off and decided to show up for breakfast at the same time as him. It worked out perfectly. I sat down in the area where he always sits and waited. About 10 minutes later, he walked in the door and saw me sitting down ordering breakfast. He came up to me and looked a little puzzled because I wasn't wearing my uniform. He asked if I had the day off and I said yes. He said, "That sucks, you're my favorite waitress." I also did my hair and put on some cute clothes that morning, and he noticed because he complimented me, said I looked really pretty. I could feel my face getting hot. I probably turned 10 shades of red. Lol. Next thing I know, he asked if he could sit at my table with me. I was so nervous. Guys never give me butterflies, but he gives them to me all the time. But I acted totally normal and tried not to be a dork. Haha. Normally, I'm very shy around him, but he made me feel comfortable and was super easy to talk to. We sat and talked for a while before our breakfast came. It was so much fun. My manager was the one waiting on us, which she never does, but she's been encouraging me to make a move on him for quite a while. She was so happy for me. Anyway, I felt like he was giving me signals the entire time, which made me a lot more confident. So I finally worked up the courage and asked if he'd like to hang out sometime, and he agreed. We swapped numbers and he's been texting / flirting with me a few times a day ever since. Since we've been texting, I've learned that we both enjoy hiking, so I suggested that we go hiking and check out an old lighthouse, which isn't too far from where we live. He just moved here, so he's never seen it before. We live on the Great Lakes, northern Michigan, so that's what we're planning on doing this weekend. When we were texting last night, he mentioned that he'd like to go to this fall festival, which is coming up in a couple of weeks, and wanted to know if I'd go with him. So I playfully said, "Are you asking me out on a date?" And he said, "Yes. Will you please go with me?" I'm so excited. Thank you all for your help on my original post. You guys gave me a ton of great advice. I can't believe how easy this whole thing was. Now I see what men have to go through when it comes to asking women out. Anyway, thank you, Reddit. Update 2. It's been a couple of months since my last post, so I think you all deserve a happy update. First of all, thank you all. I sincerely mean that. I was just a shy girl with a crush on a handsome stranger, and to think that he's now my boyfriend is just nuts. I can't even describe how happy I am. 2 months ago, I left off by mentioning that I was going to take him on a date and show him around the area a little bit since he just moved here. I talked about how we both love hiking, so I planned to take him to this lighthouse, which is only a short drive from where we live. I was afraid it was going to rain, but it turned out to be the perfect day. We packed a little picnic and spent an afternoon hiking. I thought it was so romantic. We had a great time. Over the next couple of weeks, we continued to see each other and go on fun dates. I wanted to take things to the next level so bad, but I wanted to wait to make sure he felt the same way about me. After a couple weeks of dating, we were hanging out at his place one night cuddling/watching a movie, and that's when he finally asked me if we could be exclusive. It was the best night. So we've been in an exclusive relationship for a couple of months now, but I feel like I've known him forever. We just click. Anyway, he has a huge family and they had Thanksgiving last weekend, which I was invited to. He begged me to come. I'm a shy person, so I was a little nervous, but they made me feel so welcome. His mother's a total sweetheart and his dad is hilarious. When we were leaving, I gave his parents hugs and his mom says to me, "You know, he talks about you all the time. He's like madly in love with you." My boyfriend was so embarrassed. I've never seen him get so red. Ha ha ha. I invited him to my family's Thanksgiving as well, and my family loved him, which was a huge relief because my dad hasn't liked any of my past boyfriends. But he immediately took a liking to him and had to show him around his shop because they're both into cars. It was so nice to finally bring a guy home that dad approves of. And of course, my mom and aunts thought he was a hunk. Lol. Talk about awkward. Anyway, I just figured I'd let you know how the date went and that we're finally a couple. Thanks for all your help a couple months ago when I wanted to ask him out. You guys really encouraged me, so thank you. Commenter. So you're inviting all of us to the wedding, right? Commenter 2. What? This post isn't depressing, gut-wrenching, or embarrassing. It hasn't ruined my faith in people. Are you sure this post doesn't violate some rules?
Did you ever turn your strict parents' own dumb rules against them? My parents controlled everything. My phone, friends, even what clothes I could wear. But their most absurd rule, the gratitude journal. Every Sunday, I had to write 5 things I was grateful for about their parenting. If they didn't approve, I'd lose privileges for the week. You should be thankful we provide a roof over your head, my mom would say, whenever I complained. When I turned 17, I got accepted to 3 colleges with scholarships. My parents immediately took over, insisting they'd handle the decision process. One night, I overheard them in the kitchen. "We can't let her go to Berkeley," my dad said. "It's too far away. She needs to stay local where we can keep an eye on her." My mom agreed. "We'll tell her the scholarships fell through." The next morning, they announced I'd be attending the community college 10 minutes away. That Sunday, I wrote in my gratitude journal, "I'm grateful you taught me the importance of documentation." I emailed all 3 colleges explaining my situation, attaching years of my gratitude journals. 2 days later, Berkeley called offering emergency housing and an additional scholarship. When moving day came, my parents were stunned to see me packing. "Where do you think you're going?" my father demanded. "Berkeley," I replied calmly. "I'm grateful you taught me to be resourceful." I left that day. 4 years later, I graduated with honors and without a single visit home.
A man walks into a bar and says to the bartender, "4 drinks, please." The bartender asks, "Rough day?" The man replies, "Yeah, I just found out that my brother is gay." The bartender says, "Well, everyone has their own path." The next day, the man walks into the bar again and says, "4 drinks, please." The bartender asks, "Another rough day?" The man replies, "Yeah, I just found out that my oldest son is gay." The bartender says, "Well, that's his choice." On the 3rd day, the man walks into the bar again and says, "4 drinks, please." The bartender asks, "OMG, another rough day?" The man replies, "Yeah, I just found out that my youngest son is gay." The bartender says, "It's totally up to him who he is attracted to." The 4th day comes around, and the man walks into the bar again and says, "4 drinks, please." The bartender asks, "Doesn't anyone in your family like women?" The man replies, "Yeah, my wife."
Single parents, what's your best worst dating story? After losing my husband in a car accident, I spent 3 years focused solely on raising our son, Jake. Dating wasn't even on my radar until my sister created a dating profile for me as a birthday gift. I reluctantly agreed to one date with Mark, a divorced father who seemed normal in messages. Our first date was surprisingly comfortable. Mark was attentive, asked thoughtful questions about Jake, and shared stories about his daughter without making her his entire personality. When he asked for a second date, I agreed, but established my boundaries. No meeting Jake until I was certain about us. 6 months in, things were going well. Mark respected my rules, never pushed to meet Jake, and understood when I canceled last minute because of parenting emergencies. I started to think maybe I'd found someone who truly understood the single parent life. Then came Jake's 10th birthday. I'd planned a small celebration at the local arcade, just Jake and 3 friends. As I was helping the arcade staff set up our reserved area, I froze. There was Mark across the room, with a girl about Jake's age who had to be his daughter. I panicked. Should I leave? Pretend I didn't see him? But before I could decide, Jake burst in with his friends, spotted the girl, and yelled, "Emma!" They ran to each other and hugged like old friends. Confused, I approached Mark, who looked equally shocked. "You're Jake's mom?" he asked, eyes wide. Turns out, Emma and Jake were in the same class. They'd become friends months ago, and Mark had been dropping Emma off for play dates at Jake's house for weeks. He'd never come inside because Emma's mom, his ex-wife, usually picked her up. We'd been dating for months while our kids had already formed their own friendship, completely unaware of our connection. The birthday party became an impromptu meet the kids moment. Watching Mark interact with Jake, helping with the games, laughing at his jokes, made my heart swell. Jake whispered to me later, Emma's dad is cool. You should date him, Mom. I thought we were heading towards something beautiful. Mark and I started including the kids in some of our dates. Movie nights, hikes, even a weekend camping trip. Jake adored Mark, and I fell in love with how Emma's face lit up when she talked about books, just like her father's. 3 months later, Mark asked me to meet him for coffee without the kids. His expression was serious as he slid a small velvet box across the table. My heart raced. Was this happening? I can't do this anymore, he said quietly. Emma's mom wants to try again, for Emma's sake. I sat there, stunned, as he explained how his ex-wife had been diagnosed with MS. She needed support, and Emma needed both parents. The box wasn't a ring. It was a necklace he'd bought me weeks ago, but never had the chance to give. The hardest part wasn't losing Mark. It was watching Jake lose another person he'd grown to love. For weeks, he asked when we'd see Emma and Mark again. I couldn't bring myself to tell him that Emma had switched to another class to make things less awkward. I haven't heard from Mark. I don't know if I will, but I've learned that when you're a parent, love stories don't just involve two hearts, they involve entire families.
What's the pettiest act of revenge that ended up paying off big? There was a guy in my small town that started protesting a shitty car RV dealership that ripped him off. He is a local legend. He just stood on the street corner with a sign, day in and day out, warning people not to do business there. He was polite. He didn't yell or block anything. He just stood on a curb with a sign that vaguely claimed that the car dealership was scummy. Staying away from specifics is apparently helpful to avoid accusations of libel. Later, he added a counter for how many days he had been protesting. He wore nice clothes and his hair was combed and face clean shaven. He wore glasses. He had a cooler with drinks and food and would sometimes sit on it, eat a sandwich, and watch the traffic go by. His sign was well written. His pants were ironed. He looked like an ordinary, respectable, good person who just had been ripped off and decided to fight it on principle, something everyone could relate to. Salesmen at the dealership would go harass him. They'd call the cops, but he was within his rights. Then one day, a shitty new salesman tried to push him around. Apparently some customers walked away from a sale and this guy thought it was because of the one-man protest. He probably was right. I know that I would rethink buying a car if I noticed a dude with a sign outside that indicated he had been ripped off so badly that he decided to protest about it every day, all day long, for months, knocked him to the ground, threw his sign in the street, and kicked him. And it was all caught on video from multiple angles because the protester had cameras running. The protester sued. They settled. I think it was around $250K. Then he went right back to protesting, only now across the street for some reason. That dealership is out of business now. Not so much due to him, but the 2008 recession.
A boy meets his mother and asked, "Mom, why do I have a scar on my face?" The mom explained that when they were little, his older brother mistakenly hurt him while they were fighting. The boy got furious and ran to his older brother. "You are evil! You did this to me! I hate you!" The boys grew up not talking to each other. Their mother died without reconciling them. The brothers married and had children, yet they didn't speak to each other, but they missed each other. The older brother will say to himself, "If only my brother would let me see him and apologize." The younger one will say, "If only he will come and say I'm sorry, I'll forgive him." Many years passed. Nothing changed. One day, the younger brother's phone rang. "Hello, I'm your brother's wife. He's very sick in the hospital. I pray he gets well," said the brother, but he didn't visit. Then one day, news came to him. His older brother has a stroke. He could neither speak nor move. By the time his brother arrived, he had passed away. He left him a note. "Dear brother, I miss you so much. My greatest regret in life was not having the courage to say I'm sorry. Let our children love each other and never be like us. This is my dying wish."
What family secret was finally spilled in your family? My grandma didn't drive. I thought she couldn't, but it was just never discussed. One day when I was maybe 7 or 8, I'd been trying to get someone, anyone, to drive me to the store for candy. We were visiting my aunt and uncle. Grandma lived with them. They had Biddo honey at the local store, which I could no longer get at home, but no one would take me to the store. Finally, I said I'd just ask Grandma, and my cousin chimes in with, "Grandma can't drive." Grandma, now offended, replied, "Oh, you bet your sweet ass I can drive. They just don't let me." But that's all that was said about it, and my aunt finally took me to the store, so I forgot about it. Years later, when I'd just gotten my license, I asked my mom what was up with Grandma not driving. She explained that during Prohibition, Grandma bootlegged alcohol for moonshiners. She was very successful at it. She was so successful at it that when the moonshiners were finally busted, even though the revenuers never caught my grandma, her license was suspended by the state to never be reissued. Later in life, she was told she could petition for it back, but it came with an admission of guilt or some such. She told him to go to hell.
What has your child done that brought you to tears? My son Tyler is on the autism spectrum. Been that way since he was little. Not the kind you see in movies where they're math geniuses. Just a regular kid who struggles with change and reading people's faces. When he started middle school last year, I was terrified. That place is brutal for any kid, let alone one who's different. First week, I found him sitting in our garage after school, rocking back and forth. Wouldn't tell me what happened. Just kept saying, "I'm fine," over and over. The next morning, I noticed his favorite dinosaur keychain was missing from his backpack, the one he'd had since he was 4. When I asked about it, he just shrugged and said he didn't need it anymore. That night, while doing laundry, I found it stuffed in his jeans pocket. One of the legs was broken off. A few days later, his teacher called. Tyler had been eating lunch alone in the bathroom. My heart shattered into a million pieces. I tried everything, talking to the school, offering to drive him to a different one, even suggesting homeschooling. He just kept saying, "I'm okay, Mom, I can do this." My daughter Mia is 2 years younger, complete opposite of Tyler, talks nonstop, makes friends in seconds. I never worried about her. One Tuesday I got a call from the principal. My stomach dropped, but it wasn't about Tyler. It was Mia. She'd gotten into trouble for skipping class. When I picked her up, she wouldn't look at me, just stared out the window the whole drive home. "You gonna tell me what happened?" I finally asked. "I saw some 8th graders making fun of Tyler at lunch," she mumbled. "They were doing this thing where they pretended to be robots because of how he talks sometimes." My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. "So you skipped class because I was hiding in the bathroom crying," she said. "And I didn't want Tyler to see me upset because then he'd know something was wrong." I pulled over right there on Maple Street. "Honey, it's okay to be—" "No, it's not," she snapped, "because I'm supposed to be helping him, not crying in bathrooms." That's when she pulled out her phone and showed me a checklist app she'd downloaded. It was titled Operation Brother. Every day for the past month, she'd been setting her alarm for 6 a.m., an hour before I got up, to prepare things for her brother. Make sure his blue folder is on top because that's for first period. Text him at 11:32 to remind him about lunch. Check if anyone posted anything mean about him online. She'd created a whole system. A 9-year-old girl running interference for her brother while I had no clue. "I sit with the popular girls at lunch," she said quietly. "So I made them start saying hi to Tyler. Told them he knows all about dinosaurs and can name like 100 of them. Yesterday was Tyler's birthday. We always struggle with parties. Too many people, too much noise. This year he said he just wanted pizza at home. No big deal. But when we walked in from school, there were 3 kids from his class sitting awkwardly on our couch. Not the cool kids, just other quiet ones who liked science and video games." Mia stood nervously by the door. "I didn't invite a lot of people," she whispered. "Just the ones who wouldn't be too loud. And I told them not to sing the birthday song because Tyler hates that." I watched as my son cautiously sat down with these kids. They started talking about some game I didn't understand, but Tyler was actually talking back, not just nodding or giving one-word answers. Later, I found a crumpled note in Mia's room while picking up laundry. It was a list of instructions she'd given these kids before they came over. "Don't touch his stuff without asking. He might not look at your face when talking. That's normal. If he gets quiet, just wait. Don't try to make him talk. His laugh sounds different, but it's still a real laugh." This morning, I heard Tyler laugh from the kitchen. A real laugh. He was texting with one of those kids from yesterday. Mia walked past me with her cereal bowl. "See?" she said casually. "Told you he just needed the right friends." I'm sitting in my car right now in the Target parking lot, typing this through tears. My 9-year-old is braver and smarter than I ever was, and I never even noticed what she was doing all this time. The strangest part? When I tried to thank her, she looked confused. "But he's my brother," she said. Like that explained everything, and maybe it does.
What was something spine-chilling that a parent said to you? My dad's last gift was his beloved Mustang, but when I finally got it after graduation, all I felt was emptiness. Dad was never emotional. He worked 60-hour weeks at the factory, paid the bills on time, and showed up to my basketball games. But he didn't do hugs or say, "I love you." That's just how he was raised. When I was 17, I got accepted to my dream college with a partial scholarship. I was beyond excited, but there was still a huge gap between the scholarship and what we could afford. I knew we weren't rich, but I figured we'd get loans or something. That night, I heard my parents arguing in their bedroom. Mom wanted me to go. Dad kept saying, "We don't have it." I pressed my ear against their door, heart pounding. "What about the house fund?" Mom asked. They'd been saving for a down payment for years, stuck in our tiny 2-bedroom apartment where I shared a room with my little brother. "That's all we have," Dad said. "If we use it, we're stuck here forever." The next morning, Dad seemed normal, reading the newspaper at the kitchen table. I pretended I hadn't heard anything. 2 days passed like this, the tension growing, nobody talking about college. Then Friday night, Dad came home later than usual. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. He handed me an envelope without saying anything. Inside was a check for exactly the amount I needed for freshman year. "Dad, how—" I started, but he cut me off. "I sold the Mustang," he said quietly. "That car was his pride and joy. He'd bought it used when he was 19, before he met Mom. He'd spent weekends restoring it, teaching me about engines and transmissions as we worked on it together. It was the only thing he had that was just for him. So when he told me that, I was shocked. "No," I said, trying to hand back the check. "I'll get more loans or work or—" "It's done," he said. Then he got up and walked to his bedroom without another word. The next morning, I found him standing in the empty parking spot where the Mustang used to be. I stood beside him, not knowing what to say. "I'm sorry about the car," I finally managed. Dad didn't look at me. He just kept staring at that empty space. "I never finished high school," he said. "Had to work after my dad left. Never had options." I'd never heard him talk about his childhood before. We stood in silence for another minute. "Your education is worth more than any car," he finally said. Then he turned to me, his eyes red. "But I need you to promise me something. Anything," I said. "When you graduate, don't come back here. Don't get stuck like I did. I went to college that fall, worked 2 jobs and kept my grades up, called home every Sunday." Dad never talked much during those calls. In my junior year, Dad had a massive heart attack at work. He was only 49. By the time I got to the hospital, he was gone. Going through his things, I found a folder with my name on it. Inside were all my report cards, some childhood drawings, and a recent bank statement showing that he'd been making payments on a loan, the same amount as my tuition each semester. He'd never sold the Mustang. He'd just hidden it in Uncle Mike's garage and taken out a second mortgage on our apartment. Mom had no idea. I graduated with honors the next year. Mom came alone. After the ceremony, she handed me the keys to the Mustang. "He wanted you to have this when you finished," she said. "He was so proud of you." Inside the glove compartment was a note. "You kept your promise." I kept the car. Now both of you are free. But standing there, keys in hand, I felt nothing but emptiness. The achievement meant nothing without him there. All those years of sacrifice, the debt he took on, the extra hours he worked, all for a moment he never got to see. The Mustang sits in my garage now. now. I can't bring myself to drive it. Sometimes I just sit in it and think about how he'll never know if his sacrifice was worth it, and how no diploma or car could ever fill the space he left behind.
What's a school rumor you heard as a kid that turned out to be true years later? The most popular boy in middle school disappeared after 7th grade. Literally, his parents sold their house and moved to a new house nearby, but pretty secluded. He enrolled in a really expensive private school and cut off all ties with his friends. At the same time, a really popular male social studies teacher went on leave. Rumors circulated that the boy was touched by the teacher, and that's why they were both gone. The other popular kids got really pissed when people said that because they really liked the teacher and the kid. Eventually, people stopped talking about it. Fast forward to senior year in high school. He shows up at our prom as the date of his 5th grade girlfriend. First time anyone had seen him in years. Apparently, he reached out to the girl to ask if she had a date because he wanted to see all his old friends one last time. Apparently, he was touched by the teacher during tutoring sessions at the teacher's home. The school district and his parents agreed to bury it in exchange for tuition to the private school. He never wanted to leave and really resented his parents for it. By the time prom rolled around, he was 18, and they couldn't stop him. He wanted to set the story straight and let everyone know he was sorry for just disappearing.
What's something you saw as a kid but didn't realize was messed up until you were older? When I was 7, my mom had this special chair at our dining table nobody else could sit in. Not me, not my sister, definitely not dad. If anyone took her seat, she'd just stand there staring until they moved. I didn't think it was weird. I figured all moms had their favorite spots. I remember when grandma came for Thanksgiving dinner and sat in mom's chair. Mom stood behind her, not saying a word, until dad whispered something to grandma. She switched seats, laughing awkwardly. "Sorry, I forgot about Marie's chair," she said. But later I heard her asking dad in the kitchen, "How long has she been like this?" Mom had these rituals before eating. She'd tap her fork on the plate exactly 5 times, then rearrange all her food so nothing touched, even spaghetti. She'd spend 10 minutes separating each noodle from the sauce. I thought it was just a funny habit, like how my friend Tommy always ate his sandwich crust first, or how Ms. Peterson at school collected frog figurines. At my birthday party in 3rd grade, we had pizza, and mom brought her own plate from home, the white one with tiny blue flowers. My friend Zoe asked why, and I proudly explained, "Mom's plate is special because regular plates have invisible germs that only she can see." Zoe's mom, who was helping serve cake, gave my mom this weird look, but I didn't understand why. Every house had rules, right? Ours was that we never moved mom's stuff. Her shoes had to stay in the exact spot by the door, lined up perfectly straight. Her toothbrush couldn't touch anyone else's in the holder. The magnets on the fridge had to form a perfect line, evenly spaced. The canned goods in the pantry had to have all labels facing forward. I made a game of it, pretending mom's things were lava. I'd carefully navigate around her perfectly arranged living room, where cushions had to be precisely centered. I'd warn friends who came over, "Don't touch the blue coffee mug or mom will have a bad day." My best friend Jessie thought it was cool, like we had our own secret spy training. One afternoon in 4th grade, I was reaching for my backpack and accidentally knocked over mom's carefully arranged row of magazines on the coffee table. I panicked and tried to put them back in order. Time, then People, then Better Homes and Gardens. But she came home before I could fix it. She didn't yell. She just stood frozen in the doorway, staring at the crooked pile. Then she sat on the floor next to the fallen magazines, rocking back and forth, breathing hard with her eyes closed, muttering numbers under her breath. Dad took me to get ice cream and we stayed out for hours. When we came back, mom was asleep and the magazines were perfectly arranged again. I remember thinking, wow, I get ice cream when I make a mistake. This is awesome. But dad's eyes were red and he barely talked the whole time. When I asked if mom was mad at me, he said, "No, sweetheart. Mom just needs things to be a certain way to feel safe." I didn't understand why messy magazines would make anyone feel unsafe. For my science project in 5th grade, I did an experiment on cleaning products that kill the most germs. Mom helped me every night, letting me use her special cleaning supplies that she kept locked in a cabinet. She knew everything about bleach and disinfectants. My project won 1st place and the teacher said, "Your mom must be a scientist." I beamed with pride, thinking mom was the smartest mom ever. It wasn't until my psychology class in college, 15 years later, when the professor described OCD, that everything suddenly clicked. She talked about rituals, arrangement compulsions, contamination fears, and counting behaviors. It was like she was reading the handbook to my childhood. That day, I called dad and finally asked about mom's special chair and all her rules. The long silence before he answered told me everything I needed to know. What I had seen as just how moms are was actually my mother battling severe, untreated mental illness, while everyone around her carefully maintained her fragile world of rituals, too afraid to disrupt it or get her the help she needed.
My fiancé just became my ex-fiancé because of how he reacted when I told him we were getting a prenup, claiming he was entitled to half of my son's lottery savings because he has a 5-year-old daughter I've never heard about. I, 35F, met my fiancé 2 years ago. My son, 4, gets on well with him and my ex-husband, my son's father, also likes him. Now to the point, 3 years ago I won a large sum of money in the lottery. Not millions, but enough for a nice life if I work normally and a good start for my son later. 75% went into a savings account that my son will have access to when he's 21. My fiancé always thought he had plenty of money and never let me correct him. I insisted on a prenuptial agreement, and for that the finances were disclosed. Now the amount in my son's savings account is about 5 times more than anything my fiancé has. Completely enraged, he left the lawyer's office and ignored all calls for 2 days. For me, that was the end of the relationship, and I wrote to him saying that he could have the ring back. A week later, he was at the door. He would love me, but was in shock and now wanted details of where the money had come from. He also told me that he had a 5-year-old daughter from a previous relationship, and that it would only be fair to split the money so that his daughter could also benefit from it. He sees it as justified, as I got the money through luck and not through performance. I gave him back the engagement ring and kicked him out of my apartment. Since then, I've been getting messages from various social media profiles and cell phone numbers that I would be the who is ruining his daughter's future. I only found out about his daughter that day. I never saw any photos or anything like that in the past years. Commenter: you dodged a nuke. Go treat you and your son to a fun day. TGE level of entitlement is stunning. Just remember, not your child. Not his money, the trash took itself out. Commenter 2: not a jerk. Wow. I don't know why he thought admitting to hiding a daughter for 2 years and then that you give her a trust fund for her would win you back up, but damn. Also, I want to know when he planned to reveal the daughter if he hadn't found out about the trust. I think he was definitely going to disclose that after the wedding when he thought he had op locked down. Lastly, I'm actually seriously thinking out that the daughter is completely fictional and he actually spent the last 2 days setting up a way to siphon money for his daughter's trust account. I would bet money the second the account was set up, she would pass away or suddenly have a slew of medical bills that needed to be paid from the trust. This dude is slippery AF. Update. Hello everyone, thank you for your support on my original post, and sorry for the long wait for an update. After receiving many of your tips, I took my son to his grandparents, informed the police and also my boss. Unfortunately, the police can't do much in my country as long as he doesn't commit a crime against me. Harassing me on the phone and begging for money doesn't count as a crime. I informed my boss mainly because my ex-fiancé works for a company that we deal with almost daily. That's how we originally met. In recent weeks, there have been many attempts by his friends and family to contact me, all of whom wanted to convince me to give him the money. But everyone hung up when I asked about his daughter. When my ex-fiancé showed up at my work, he didn't normally have to do that after getting a promotion. My boss called my fiancé's company and explained that if he took one more step in my direction, all contracts would be cancelled due to their unacceptable behavior. This led to a meeting with my ex-fiancé's boss, my boss, and me. I didn't tell them every detail, but when it came to the money, his boss explained to me that my fiancé actually wanted to buy a large stake in the company and was allegedly just waiting for the loan to be paid out. This made it clear why he wanted my son's money so badly. My ex-fiancé is actually a highly respected employee at his company, which is why his boss was reluctant to fire him. Especially since this probably wouldn't have improved my situation, and similar to the police, his boss considered it bad behavior, but it wasn't a criminal offense. At the same time, my company is a very large client for them, and sweeping the whole thing under the rug wouldn't help. After a few days, I received the news that my ex-fiancé was being transferred to another branch of the company, several thousand kilometers away from me. The company's purchasing department also clearly rejected the purchase. Afterwards, I found out via social media that my ex-fiancé actually has a daughter. A friend was still following him on Instagram to keep an eye on him, and when she looked at his tags from the last 6 years, she actually noticed his ex, and a look at her profile showed a girl of the specified age. I contacted her and she willingly explained to me how much he actually wanted a child and how, when the ultrasound showed it was a girl, he left her. He broke off contact with the mother during the pregnancy and willingly gave up all his rights and obligations as a father. She herself is now in a happy relationship and her husband loves her daughter. She never asked my ex-fiancé for money. Following your advice regarding the savings account, I contacted our financial advisor and can now say that I must apologize to you. It is indeed a trust fund, I just hadn't referred to it as such until then, as it is mainly referred to as a savings account in my country. But yes, it is a trust fund in the American sense. I discussed with my ex-husband, the father of my son, once again how we would make the payout and, thanks to your tips, we have now decided on a staggered payout from ages 21 to 35 so that he has a contribution for several stages of his life. The amount at age 21 has been chosen so that it can be used for college, but at the same time, it won't hurt too much if he squanders it. My question about whether I was a jerk was mainly because there were actually many people in my circle who called me that because I persuaded my ex-fiancé to sign a prenuptial agreement. But for me, prenuptial agreement was important for several reasons. To secure my son's money, now I know he wouldn't have been able to get his hands on it. I started a small business in addition to my main job, nothing big at the moment, but it's still mine. I'm saving money so that I can eventually realize my dream of owning a house in Australia, and I didn't want to lose that money to him in a divorce. In retrospect, I can see how many red flags I overlooked on his part, and I will definitely be more careful in the future. Thank you for your support. Commenter. Protecting your son's future doesn't make you the villain, it makes you the only one in his corner while everyone else tried to cash in. Commenter 2. As a fellow Australian, I'm not sure what lazy police officer told you harassing calls don't equal a criminal complaint. But they are wrong. You can absolutely lodge a formal complaint against him if you have a record of all the call logs. And while it may not lead to charges and court, the police can make a visit and tell them to stop. You can also inform your phone company about it if it continues.
My religious wife went ballistic when our son came out to her, trashing all his belongings and screaming at him to get out of our house, but I told her the only person getting thrown to the street would be her if she couldn't accept him. Writing this on a throwaway account since I know my son is on here somewhere. The long and short of it is that my son came out to me and my wife took it extremely badly. And I don't know how to handle either one of them, although for completely different reasons. Basically, here's how things happened. Wednesday, when I, 39M, came home from work, my son, 16M, said he had something to tell me. He was obviously fidgety about something, and after a bit of rambling he eventually told me he was gay. To be honest, I already knew. He's a good kid and pretty damn smart, but I'm a programmer and therefore the computer guy. I'm the one that everyone calls to fix their computers and laptop. So without drawing a picture, I already knew he was gay. So when he finally came out to me, I was actually kind of relieved. He and I have always had a good relationship, but he never told me, and I was kind of wondering if maybe we didn't have such a good relationship. In any case, I did the dad thing of telling him that I loved him and all I really wanted from him was for him to be safe and happy. He was just really relieved, I guess. Anyway, he asked me to be there when he told his mother, which now that I think about it is probably why he came to me first. Now, she is a deeply religious woman. She wasn't always, but somewhere along the line she turned from being just somewhat religious to being deeply devout, and if I'm being honest, I couldn't really pin down when or how that happened. I'm not religious in the slightest, although I do the occasional church-going and church-related functions to make her happy. Anyway, when she got home I waited for my son to take the lead on when to tell her. It's when he told her that things went to hell. I don't think she really believed it at first, probably thought it was some kind of joke or something, but when she realized it wasn't, first started crying and then went into what I can only call a rage. He tried to calm her down and I tried to help to get her to not see this as the end of the world. But she kept going on about how this wasn't the plan for him and about grandkids and a bunch of other things. But she just kept working herself into some kind of frenzy. Eventually she went to his room and starts dumping his clothes and tells him to get out of the house. My son is bawling at this point, and I just completely flip out. I order him to go to my bedroom and stay in there. And I just unleash on her. I pretty much say what kind of mother is she and that I'll be 3 weeks past and buried before I let him leave, and she gets angry at me for backing her up on this and that being gay is wrong and bunch of other stuff. Anyway, after a hell of a heated fight she leaves and goes to stay at her parents'. I try talking to my son, he's just devastated and blaming himself for everything. And I'm not sure what to do here. I let my son skip school the last couple of days as a kind of mental health day, although I let him know that he will go back on Monday. I haven't spoken to my wife since that night, and I'm not even sure what I could or should say to her, and I'm not sure how to handle my son either. He's not the usual self and I don't know how to get him to stop blaming himself. He says he wants to spend the night at a friend's house, which is fine. I figure his friends can offer different kinds of support than I can. But I'm at a complete loss. I think I did my best, although writing this I realized that since I knew he was gay for a while I should try to slowly ease her into the idea to make this less explosive, or maybe if I stayed calm earlier I could have handled it less emotionally. I just don't know where to go from here or how to handle any of this. Update 1. Wow, thank you all for the unbelievably kind words. I'm trying to read all your responses and PMs, but there was a lot more than I expected. I am reading them all and making sure to note many of the websites, videos, and organizations you have told me about. The people over at r/parenting, as well as you all mentioned PFLAG. We all live in the Louisiana area very close to New Orleans. I'm certain there is something like them there. I'll be doing some reading up on them as soon as I finish this post. I wish I had some kind of big update, but nothing really. I didn't sleep much this week and I passed out shortly after posting the original message. I did talk to my son after I woke up. He got home sometime earlier today. He seems to be holding up okay, but you guys did put the fear of him doing something rash in my mind. I'm going to talk to him again and see what I can about finding some kind of family therapist to help. As for my wife, I decided to give her some time and space, at least until Monday. If I haven't heard from her by then I'll try to contact her, and depending on what she says will determine where we go. I do want to make it clear that I don't think it will come to divorce or anything like that, but if the worst were to pass, I will choose my son. If it's a choice between him and anything else, he wins. He always wins. Some people asked about our location, which is Louisiana near New Orleans, and our faith, which is Southern Baptist. There also seemed to be some confusion about the timeline regarding when my son went to his friend's house. He went last night, Friday. Everything else happened on Wednesday. He does sleep over at his friend's occasionally, or his friend here. They usually spend way too much time watching movies or playing something on the PC or PS4. Also, he is 16, I'm 39 and his mother is 37. Again, I want to thank you all so much for your support. I promise I'm reading all your replies and will take any advice to heart. Just thanks again for everything. Update 2. Hello everyone. I wasn't sure if I wanted to post this update. I guess I'll start with my son. You all really put the fear of him hurting himself into my head. So I ended up talking to him about it in what I can only describe as the most miserable conversation of my entire life. I talked to him about how much I love him, how I always want him here, and he's the most important thing in the world to me and I don't know what I would do if he were gone. Then, I gave him one of my business cards. It has my work number on it obviously, but I also wrote my cell number on it in case he doesn't have access to his phone to remember what it is, but also had the number from the Trevor Project, which someone is kind of enough to tell me about, as well the number from the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. I told him please put the card in his wallet and if he ever feels like he's going to hurt himself to please call me or one of those other numbers. He took it, said thanks, and he was really trying his damnedest to reassure me that he wasn't really thinking about anything like that. We only had one more real heart-to-heart conversation that same exact night actually. I was in the living room trying to find something to watch on Netflix or Hulu when he approached me. He kind of sat there for a while and then apologized for making me worry and for starting everything that's happened. I tried my best to shut that down as hard as I could. Told he didn't have anything to apologize for, that nothing that is going on is his fault, that he was only doing what I've always told him to do, which is be honest with me, and that's what he did, and that I'm proud of him. I know I'm probably sounding like a broken record to him at this point, but I really feel like I need to hammer that home. I did bring up that I was thinking of us going to some family counseling. To be honest, I was actually expecting a lot of pushback here. That he would think I was trying to fix him or something. But nothing, he seemed okay with it. The rest of the night was really nice, just us watching TV together and just talking about nothing. The rest of the week with him I tried my best to keep things as normal as possible for him, just like how it would be otherwise. I really wanted to give him a sense of normalcy. Other than him spending a lot more time in the living room watching TV with me instead of in his bedroom, things are okay I guess. He's still not himself, but he's more himself than he was last week. And I'm not sure if he's spending more time with me cause he wants to be sure I'm around, or he wants to reassure me, or if he just wants access to the bigger TV in the living room. A few of you did mention that I should do what I can to remind him that our house means it's his house too. So I told him to invite his friends to stay over this weekend, which they are. Actually, just dropped them all off at the movies a while ago. They are going to go watch something, then get something to eat afterwards and call me to pick them up. But yeah, I'm just trying to help him get to normal. As for my wife, things didn't go well. I did call her late on Monday after my son went to bed. I will also admit that while I do love her, I was also very upset with her. I was trying to give her time and space to process things, and I know it's not fair to get more angry with someone that you are purposely giving space to be less angry, but I was not happy that I was the one that I had to do the reaching out first. But I tried put that aside and wanted to know where her head was at. I knew there were going to be things we needed if we were going to find a way to get past this. So I kind of made a list of them in my head. The first is we all needed to go to family counseling and I had to be the one that choose who the counselor was. Next was that she had to find some way to get past the gay thing, whether it be therapy or prayer or whatever, I don't care, but she needed to find a way to just deal with it. And third, she needed to find a way to make it up to him, and again I don't care how. I feel like this was a reasonable list. Anything else would be up for discussion, but I was going to die on those hills. And when we talked Monday she agreed he needed counseling, however she felt we should go to one sponsored by the church. I told her that was off the table. I wanted a counselor who could be neutral and who I could trust when left alone with him. And we circled this point until nearly 3 a.m. So we decided to pick this up again on Tuesday, where we had the exactly same discussion until very late in the night. And then we did all again on Wednesday. Wednesday night I told her that we needed to do this in person and finally get somewhere with this. So Thursday morning, I told my son I was going to be very late coming home, left him some money to order a pizza and told him that he and his friends could start their weekend shenanigans a day early if they liked. And then after work on Thursday, I went over to her folks and we tried to have this talk again. And we got nowhere with it. I just refused to go to someone I can't trust. So sometime later, I don't know, I guess I let go. I just gave up. I broke. I just couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't keep circling that wagon anymore. I know you shouldn't make life-altering decisions when you've only had maybe 8 hours of sleep spread over about 9 days and none of it in intervals greater than 20 goddamn minutes. But I was just done, I just couldn't do it anymore. I tried, I really did. I really wanted to make it work. We were together since college and I do love her, but I just can't do it. I can't create a situation where my son could be hurt, especially now. I have to be there for him, someone has to be. So I said it's probably for the best that we stay apart and I would bring her the rest of her things over this weekend, and I left. I went to Walmart, grabbed some boxes, cried for about half an hour in my car, and then went home. Got home at some ungodly hour to find a couple of my son's friends asleep on my couch. I realized that when I told my son to invite his friends, I meant to spend the day, and he thought I meant to spend the night. I ordinarily don't like having other people's kids in my house during a school night, but whatever, I blame myself for not being clearer, and I'm going to have to gently remind him of that fact later. I couldn't sleep last night, I was quite literally too tired to sleep. So I waited until the time my kid goes to school. Woke them all up, made them all breakfast, sent them all off to school, sent my boss an email taking a sick day. And then finally fell asleep for about 10 hours. Which brings me to now where I drove my kid and his friends to the movies. I've decided I'm not ever going to tell my son about some of things she said when we were talking. I don't want to make him feel worse, and I do actually want them to have some kind of relationship in the future, and I don't feel any need to add poison to the well. As for now, I'm going to go do something to get my mind off things, maybe play a game or watch TV or just browse Reddit until I need to pick them up. I do actually want to thank everyone again for all your messages. I think I've read and reread every message a half a dozen times. It was nice to see so many good people. A lot of your stories were really heartbreaking. I'm really sorry you had to go through that. I wish you had someone in your corner. Everyone deserves someone in their corner. As one internet stranger to another, you are all really strong people. Commenter: I really don't want to be the one, since you love her and all, but your wife seems like a total snatch, and to be honest you're never gonna get anywhere with a viper of a woman, which is how she appears throughout this story. I honestly recommend divorce. Religion clouds all rationality and she's only gonna go further in. I know it sucks, but it really comes down to who you care about more. Which obviously in and of itself is an impossible decision to make. So I'm sorry. But, congratulations for being so steadfast and brave and supporting your son through this time. You do what many parents wouldn't. Thank you for setting such a wonderful example.